Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the September 7th, 2023 meeting of the Capital Improvement Committee for the town of Litchfield. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'll start with introductions of the committee members. I'll start with you, Carrie, if you want.
All right, Carrie Douglas, Budget Committee Rep.
Pete Stone, Citizen Rep.
Andrew Cutter, School Board Representative.
Michael Proto, Planning Board.
Jamin Carra, NRPC.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectmen's Rep.
Kimberly Kleiner, Town Administrator.
Doug Totten, BA for the school district.
Okay, welcome everybody, good to see all of you on this warm evening. Public input, we'll start with public input. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment on the committee this evening? Okay, seeing none, I will close public input. Approval of the minutes from August 14th, 2023. Did anybody have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions or concerns?
No questions or concerns from my side.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. I have a motion by
I'll
Mr.
second
Cutter, and I have a second by Mr. Stone. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the approval of the minutes from August 14th, 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. Oh, before I start, there's no one on the call, is there? Is there anybody on your end? Okay, I thought I saw a number of them. I know Marion Colby was supposed to be here tonight, and I
Yeah,
don't think
she's texting, she's trying to get in.
she's trying to get in. Okay, well, if she does, we'll.
Are we set up for it?
I think there's WebEx here, but
Okay.
I'm not sure how it
Yeah.
works, so.
Okay, all right. Next item is D, which is final approval of the bylaws. I know we tabled this issue from last meeting. Andrew, did you have an opportunity to take a look
I did. I
at
printed them out, reviewed them. They all seem to align to what I was expecting to see. So.
Okay. I think they look good. Does anybody have any other questions about the bylaws? Any concerns? Okay,
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to review.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if everybody is good with them, I'm going to entertain a motion to have them approved this evening.
Moved.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Cutter. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Stone. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the adoption of the Capital Improvement Committee bylaws and rules of procedure for the town of Litchfield, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 4-0-0. Thank you. Okay, great. All right, moving on. We have a couple presentations this evening. I see here there's the library is not here this evening, I don't believe, but we do have Highway Department and Recreation. I did just quickly receive an email from Mr. Brennan of the Conservation Commission. He sent me this only because I had sent an email that I was going to be unavailable for that meeting tonight because I was going to be here. And I just want to read what he said, if I can find it. Here it is. Michael, Conservation is supposed to present our CIP project tonight. What we have in there is what we had last year. All we want to do is slide that forward. If our meeting gets done early, I will come over. However, we will probably have a lengthy discussion about the potential, property for an issue with the conservation. Okay. Thank you, Jason Brennan. Okay. So if he gets out early, maybe he'll come over. If not, he's basically keeping it the same, so for conservation. So first off tonight is Highway Department, and I see we have Mr. Brown here. You are welcome to come up to the table there, or you can sit there and
Oh man,
be
you gotta
perfect
move
for
that 3
us.
feet. I'll speak a little louder.
Okay, so we did receive some worksheets from the highway department.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to take a look at those, but Mr. Brown, the floor is yours, so I'll let you.
Well, what we're proposing, Kim and I worked on this, is a repaving of the transfer station and the highway facility complete. Anybody that's gone to the dump knows what the access road looks like, they know what the dump parking lot looks like. Take your time and just take a right instead of going to the dump and come around our facility and take a look at the asphalt down around back. It's pretty beat up bad. We got a quote from our local contractor that we use in town. I'll tell you right now, it's an incredible price. If you look at the quote, it's a little mixed up. The estimator came out and then they brought it back to the office and they put some of the stuff under town shed that was under recycling and vice versa. But I can explain that all to you if we need be. It's $287,782. It's a complete reclamation and paving. Should last us another 30 years, hopefully. Of course, we added a few spots here and there that we would need to cover, but it's pretty straightforward. It's very visible. All you need to do is drive around and take a look at it, and you can see we have heavy equipment, heavy trucks. We have salt, we have sand. And it's taken a beating over the years. I think it's still original pavement. There have been some patches. I've done some myself. We've done a bunch in the transfer station. The access road, you'll see in here there's some catch basements. If you drive in on the left-hand side where the field is, we get a big line of puddle down that side because there's nowhere for that to drain off. So I wanted to add in 2 catch basins, which would go in line with the 2 catch basins that are forward of the gate. To negate that issue with the water runoff. So I guess that's about it. It's something that I feel we need.
So that would be both the transfer station and your access?
It would be from Hillcrest Recycling Way, whole transfer station, and all of my facility out back. Where the police pumps are.
Yes. That's a lot of square footage.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That's why it's a major ask. It wouldn't fit into my pavement budget. I'd be taking it from streets. This would be over my pavement budget by $88,000 if I did just that. I'll entertain any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown?
Just so people know, I know a lot of people don't get around back to the highway department. We have our full garage, we have a couple tent bays, we have the police, well actually the whole town, but where the police and fire and highway fuel up. So we have the gas tanks, we also have our fuel tank, and we have fire's fuel tank back there. So the access back there is to all emergency vehicles, all town vehicles, and so it should be paved, it should be in good shape.
Does that include striping the new spaces or anything else?
We don't, other than Dave's area, other than recycling, we would stripe that. I can stripe that myself.
Okay.
So I wouldn't, that's not added into this price, but that's, the lines for where the windows are, we could take care of that.
Okay.
Ourselves in Outback, we don't have any spacing.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
pull up and park.
Not too many people you should be.
Yeah,
Now, I've heard questions about, and I don't know if this would be you or Dave, would it be appropriate to look at access to the transfer station building itself through ramps or any other things while you're working on this project? Because I just know that some people have had concerns about accessing that building. I remember when it was a tiny little stair going up, so I like the widened stairs.
Yeah.
But I know that there are some people in town who could
I mean,
benefit from.
this wouldn't have anything to do with the paving. Well, that wouldn't have anything to do
I
with
just
the
think
paving.
while you're all in there.
We could, hire a contractor or get some quotes to have, a ramp. It would have to be made out of metal, it would be a metal ramp, and we'd have to have that installed. It would have to run in front of the doors where those bins are.
Right.
So it would be a little bit of an undertaking, but that's a different project.
Right, no, I think if we're going to do all this paving, people drive up and see this gorgeous new asphalt paving, the next person will be like, well, why didn't we do the ramp? So if we.
Cause the ramp's not pavement.
And why didn't we paint it? Why didn't we?
Well,
paint it?
no, I know,
Why
so
didn't
I'm
we-
saying, but we could
I-
say,
I don't-
oh, well, we're thinking about it, that's a not yet project, you know, just, we're thinking, you know, we've heard, so, but
know
yes, I
we've had
understand.
a little bit of feedback on that, and, I mean, it was just a little bit, and
Right.
it really hasn't, no one's really pushed, and no one's
Okay.
actually come to Dave and said, hey, I can't get in there.
No, I hear you, I
You
know,
I'm just not sure that it's,
it's a big request, I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying, like I said, I remember with the tiny stairs, I thought the widened stairs were a huge improvement, but I'm
Right.
also, my knees still work, so I don't, the ramp's not quite on my list of things I need
and
yet.
I really do think Dave makes it approachable, so if you can't bring your cans up, his guys will be more than happy
Right.
to help. And there are cans down bottom, so if you can't get up and get
Right.
into dumping the dumpsters, you can dump in those cans and move about. So
Okay.
I think he has alternative areas,
That's awesome, I mean, I appreciate, just like I said,
and
that's what I think.
if not, we can make that happen.
Right, again, I'm just saying, we're doing, if the proposal is for a bunch of work in there, so while we're there, like, what else organically ties in, so, awesome, I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
And what about sources of funding? Are there other alternative sources of funding available to highway or in terms of
They
grants?
just
and-
No.
put it all on
No.
that screen.
No, I mean, we work off of, in all reality, we spoke about this in budget. The town actually, by taxes pays for $10,000 of paving every year. The rest is block grant money, the rest comes from the state. So the town does not pay for it, your taxes do not pay for our paving in this town. We used to have a $200,000 warrant article every year, and when this facility was built, the decision was made to take that off the table to kind of lessen the impact on the taxpayers, and we never got that back. So we were running on $400,000 approximately a year for paving, now we're at $2.
Right.
And that's all state money. The $10,000 that's in our budget that comes from the town is more for fixing, like, we're gonna do some work down at the library this summer, or the end of this summer. So that's about $8,500 coming out of that, and then, we have to fix a hole or a ramp or something, we have that money, but, this is way well and above, there, NRPC can tell you, there's no money out there. You know what I mean? We used all the federal money up on a fire truck and a backhoe, and,
Do you foresee any other large expenditures coming down the line, or do you think this will get you where you need to be for like the next 5 years?
for paving.
Yeah. Well, outside of the.
It's a trick question,
streets,
apparently.
Yeah, that's
Outside
a
of
very open question.
Outside of the standard, we're doing these streets, like
Well,
town
as-
properties requiring additional,
No, because, we're trying to do a big job and maintaining, like we're doing library work this year. The intent is to reseal and line, the town hall, police station next year. And probably if I can, I'll get the library done again and then reline that. So we're trying to do preventive maintenance continuously.
right,
And the roads were in really good shape, and, I know the PFOAs and the roads and going over to Pennachuck really hurts a lot of people, but it was really good for the highway department, because we got a lot of roads done under, the going over to Pennachuck, just like Rocky Hill and Shirley and all the ones they're gonna do this year. So we're in a good spot with paving. I feel that we can keep up with the paving. It'll always be something,
Right.
oh my God, the CIP plan says you're supposed to do this next year, and then, 6 months later, I'm like, well, this really needs it worse.
right.
But as far as paving's concerned, I think we're in a very good position, to maintain the way we've been going, and we're doing a good job at it. If you're asking me, are there any other big things for
My
the
question
highway
is like,
department? I
are
can
we
give you
gonna
some more.
see in the next 2 to 5 years, another $250,000 request?
Yes,
Oh, well, that should be on our 5-year plan then, right? So, yeah.
well, it has been. It
Okay.
was on it since 2021,
Okay.
salt shed.
Okay, yeah.
So when the initial CIP came out, we put that in there. So we'll continue to ask for it.
Right,
We haven't done any engineering because, I don't know where this money's gonna come from, never mind, you know what I mean? But, we need more garage space, we need more space to park equipment in the winter and, work on equipment. Right now, we have one garage bay, and we usually put our yellow piece of equipment in there to maintain those, so they don't sit out in the weather. And, so we have a broken down truck, we pull it in, those pieces of equipment are outside. That bay could be completely full with the truck for a week while we're waiting on parts. you know, we need another bay. And the whole idea, my whole idea is to build a barn, build a wood structure, you know, salt shed like the state has up in Bedford. And then we can take those salt bays and convert those into garage bays. You know, I think that's the most cost-effective way, or put up a steel building in the back where that white tent is and convert the bays that we have into more salt bays. And then we'd have the capacity and we'd have a new building. So I think the salt shed would probably be a lesser expense. But we've had that in there since the inception of CIP, well, the last itineration.
Any limitation on that 287 for their estimate? Is there a time box on it? I know it's a loaded question, I was just.
Yeah, they're very good to us. You know, I mean, we use the same contract, we have a really good rapport. If you look at their pricing, per tonnage, it's absolutely incredible. I'm paying more.
Well, that's why I was
I'm paying more
asking.
than another vendor for.
Like, is he
for
giving you a
patch
deal
that
for
we have to give a ton.
2024, is he giving you, you know? Is it-
They really didn't give us a time. It says, you know, it didn't really give us a time. In the past, they've kind of taken care of us. Would it go up some? It might. We'd definitely have to look at that when the time comes. And if that's the case, we have, so we've got approved at 287 and it came through at 302, then I'd have to cut back on what paving, you know, certain sections maybe, you know, shorten up some of the parking space and then following years, you know, add to it. You know, nothing we do is instant,
Oh, no, I know.
you know, and I believe that they know that.
So, also you have, one of your worksheets that's talking about replacement of the trucks, the medium
Yeah,
truck?
so we have a,
I don't know if I can put that.
we have a 2000 International 4900. That is, I'm having a hard time even finding parts for. Kim and I are working on something right now. There is the Volkswagen diesel debacle turned into every state getting a certain amount of money out of the multi-billion-dollar judgment they had against them. So I believe in the interest, 10 million. I think it's around $10 million to upgrade either to electric or to upgrade older 2009 and older diesel trucks, heavy Class 8, which we have 3 of them which are in that category. So we're looking into that. We're going to apply for that grant, and hopefully we can, you know, they take those trucks, they cut them up, and they buy you new ones. So we're looking into that, but you know, I go over this with budget every year. I go over this all the time. We need to upgrade our fleet. We have to continuously upgrade our fleet. You know, 10, 12 years on a truck is the utmost we should be at. That truck is 23. You know, we've got other trucks, 2012s, 2009s, 2010s, and you know, we're also talking about a vehicle replacement plan. You know, we'll talk about budget. We can talk about it now. We purchased a Freightliner back in 2018. We had a 5-year payment plan on it. It's in our budget. We're going to ask for another truck this year, and hopefully we can keep that in the budget and just maintain that payment out. Because you know, not that it doesn't have any tax impact, it's no new tax impact. So we'll be presenting that to the budget committee 28th, I believe it is.
So I'm actually looking at the CIP plan from last year, and I don't see a salt shed in here, so I don't know if it just didn't,
Definitely have that in there.
Yeah, we did.
at
Yeah, but I
one
don't,
point,
it might
but
not have
it's-
went into the last year's.
but on the one that was adopted 11/14/2022,
Cause
I
it-
don't see anything under the,
Because it was in there when we did all the trucks, the original one.
so I
Yeah, I
don't, so
remember
I just don't, I don't want it to get lost, so if I don't see it on
We should
here,
put it
Yeah,
back
if it
on
was
the
in
line.
Highway.
so we should probably make sure it gets back in,
So, yeah, it could have been the year, I'll have to check, could have been the year,
yeah.
it was an out year.
We had a lot of ARPA stuff going on, so that might have been just gotten lost,
Yeah.
but if you think it's on the list, and I'm not seeing it, then there's a disconnect, so we need to make sure that it gets back on.
I'll make sure.
All right.
Yeah, it was on the initial one. I mean, I haven't seen
Right.
an updated CIP.
And that, I think something of that size, and that should be on the list, I just don't want it to get lost, that's all.
I mean, in the salt shed, I mean, I don't know if we beat it to death, but, you know, it'd be a lot easier for us to buy 1,200 ton and have it sitting there waiting for us to be used rather than after every
Each
storm,
one.
ordering 300, ordering 200, you know, wondering if the truck's gonna show up, 70 shows up, and you hope you don't have another storm. From the sound of this winter, we might need it all.
Okay. Any other questions?
Do we wanna put a placeholder on there for the truck, just in case it doesn't go through budget? Just for the plan, Jay?
I think it should be in there, yeah.
Well, it should be anyway, shouldn't it, even if it's going to warrant or.
Yes.
I don't know,
There's-
there's weird
there
gray
is
areas with
numbers.
some of that stuff.
It's
so-
good to have an idea of like what the total,
Yeah.
like even if it gets approved, you know that
We can
annual
always, we can
payment,
market that it was,
but that annual
Looks like
payment is
budget.
gonna be part of like, well, how much have we approved, are we anticipating paying in 2026 for our capital improvements? Well, we're on the hook for, you know, what, $100,000 a year for the next however many years, that should be factored in.
I don't, do you remember what the dates are on the grant? I think it's by October?
It is by
What
October.
if that
October,
goes-
so hopefully we would hear something prior to
Grant for what is this?
the truck
The
grants
clean
we're
street,
working
the
on.
clean.
Oh, so there's a possibility of getting this truck that you wanna put in for warrant as a grant?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I like that already, I like that better from the
Right.
budget side.
And we should still put that in and just show the source of funds as
Oh,
being
absolutely.
grant.
do you have a value on the trucks?
Yeah, I do. I have quotes, one of them's really high. So the medium duty, which we've been going with, is around 150,000, and then, the other quote I have is 255 for a large truck, but that has those are ready built, and depending upon the grant,
Mhm.
would depend on how we went about. I can go to HP Fairfield and I can buy the 5500s that we've been buying for 150,000 complete, done. Or I can go back out and I can go to the Chevy dealership, buy the truck, take it to Fairfield, get a quote in from Donovan and Fairfield, Madigan, and get the best quote and build it, probably $20,000 less if we build it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, but it all depends on how the money flows. If they say to us, all we're buying is the truck, then we're gonna have to fund
Right.
plows and sander
Yeah.
and such.
Well, I wasn't trying to get to that level of detail, just so we had some kind of numbers to attach.
150 to 250, depending upon the truck. If you go class 6, it's 150, you go class 8, it's, high number is 250.
And I see a
That's-
quote here for 300.
For the truck?
Well, I think it's a truck, HP Fairfield.
Yeah, that one's,
Yes.
yeah, that one's not realistic, only because of the stuff that it has. I asked him for a heavy 8, and he sent me that, so this here has a hook truck body on it, which brings it up about $60,000. And yes, it would be great, but it's not necessary, and I probably wouldn't, if I were to build one, I wouldn't build it with that. I wouldn't ask for $300,000, I'd ask you for two trucks at 150.
And are these such that you do not require a CDL to drive?
The class 8 ones you do.
Okay.
The trucks that we were replacing, that we're putting up for the grant, that we wanna replace are CDL. So we have 3 CDL trucks.
I thought we were trying to move away from CDL to expand the pool of available people.
We have, well, out of our 9 trucks, 3 are CDL and 6 aren't.
Okay.
And that seems to be a good mix. I have drivers for the CDLs, I mean, I CDL, one of my guys is, and
Okay.
I have other drivers. They're larger, they have 6-yard sanders, the plows are bigger, you know what I mean, they're made so that, you know, after a storm, you can go back and you can push back the snow banks with, you can wing them back, with the smaller trucks can't really do that. So they have their purpose, they have
Okay.
more use. Do I need 9 of those? No.
Right.
I can live with 3 of those, and then the rest would be the medium duty to light duty.
Okay.
All right. And there was something else, wasn't there? For a plow? Was it a plow? Oh, it's an F-350, 450 truck
Well, I
replacement?
mean, we did back at the initial CIP plan, we kind of worked out over 6 years replacements, so I don't know what you pulled from that original one. I mean, the F-350, the pickup, maybe did you put that in?
It says 8723.
Okay, so we
Right,
have
yeah.
we have a 2015 F-350.
Mhm.
It has 105,000 miles on it. It needs about $2,200 worth of work. You know, I mean, these coils and these plugs. It's at its end of its life cycle. It's, you know what I mean? It's time. You know, just like anybody else's car at home, it's time. You know, it's an F-350, so it's the smallest of the group that we have. It's worked its tail off, it's the one Jack used to drive around, but it's at its life, it's at the end of its life. And, you know, it does still have some value, it has some trade-in value. You know, the 15 with 100,000 miles is still $18,000, $20,000 trade-in probably. But for us, for the amount of, you know, the wear and tear we put on them, it's time.
Anybody have questions? Okay.
Yeah, we have one here.
Yep, oh, I'm sorry.
So I just, I looked back, Mr. Brown and I received Board of Selectmen approval to apply for the grant on August 14th. There is a match to the grant, so it is 80-20 split, 20 by the town. And the proposals are due October 13th.
Okay.
They do determine that, and one of the reasons that we looked at this is that they estimate that the review process will take 6 to 8 weeks. So that will put us right around town meeting time.
I got the sense, though, that if you apply and you qualify, you will get the funding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
that it's not like it's competitive and you might not get anything. I think you will get the funding for it to qualify. It sounds like you do, so.
Well, I mean, you know, if we get to that point, you know, maybe we can, you know, whatever the 20% is, we can fund that with the 28,000 that's already in the budget. You know, ask the people for, you know, whatever that number is.
Well, I'll let you negotiate that with the Board of Selectmen.
I don't have a problem with that. That's the budget committee.
Who on the budget committee would give you a hard time?
Well, good luck.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
You know where to leave the snow in winter.
That's right. I know where they all
Is
are.
that why they go the wrong way around my cul-de-sac?
There's a right way.
There
Cul-de-sac.
is definitely a right way to plow a cul-de-sac.
Put it this way, how about I plow your road myself?
Then I will be out there watching. You should do.
You can ride with me, I'll show you how to do it. Or you can show me how to do it.
That's cool.
There is definitely a correct way to do it.
Oh, boy.
No, thank you.
She's gonna be flagging you down the first storm now.
I know she will, she will.
I used to send short messages like, yes, they did it right.
Thank you very
Okay, well,
much.
thank you, we appreciate you coming in and providing that information to us. Thank you.
I'm available if you have any questions after the fact.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Take care.
Thank you.
The next item is Recreation Commission. I believe Mr. Ames from the Recreation Commission is here this evening. Good evening.
I'm Peter Ames, 21 Moose Hollow Road. I'm the chair of the Recreation Commission, and I appreciate the opportunity to come in to speak to you tonight. And on that, I wanted to acknowledge that I'm delayed in the process here and apologize for that. That was on me. Kim did send me the notice on time, which I just missed. I don't really have a better excuse than that, but I appreciate the chance to come in and talk tonight about prospective projects. I did want to start off with the opportunity to just kind of reflect on some of the things that have been done over the last couple of years, because there's certainly been a lot of progress made that's worth noting, and most of it has been done without taxpayer funding. So we really are the benefit of a lot of great volunteers and generous donors that have supported projects in the town. So in the last year we had the paving of Royal Memorial Park parking lot. That was a very big step forward for us. The addition of the pickleball courts, which was really led by a couple of the commission members on rec, as well as the Pickleball League. Again, we had a generous donation for the foundation and the paving of that parking lot as well. We have river access, which was a priority. We now have a new artesian well over at Royal Memorial Park, which helps out hugely with our irrigation problems there. The Justin Bissett Memorial Fields are beautiful. If you haven't been down to see them recently, they look fantastic, and really have expanded that space there. And even just recently, we've had some things done at the Kirk Schaefer Memorial Park. So a lot of good things have been done, and just want to acknowledge that that's been a lot of volunteer work and generosity by folks here in town. So good things moving forward. As we look ahead, I believe you have the list that I sent in front of you, and I want to kind of pair that up with what our previous projects were and what we're thinking. But let me start off with the first two, which are really the big inflection point for the recreation activities in town, and that as it relates to Talent Hall and what a community center could look like here in town. So Talent Hall gets a lot of use. During the cold weather months, it's full pretty much every day, or requested every day, primarily through the rec leagues. And it is well used. It's really a big space, is what it is. You know, it's a warm, safe indoor space that gets a lot of use, but it is not, certainly a community center or a venue that is appropriate for other types of functions that you might see in a general community center. So as a rec commission, we've struggled with this for a number of years because Talent really doesn't owe us anything at this point. It's been a solid building, but it's certainly in decline. And as we consider investing in upgrades to it, we worry that it's throwing good money after bad because we're always one step away from something else significant being a problem at Talent. And so that's been what we've been struggling with about which path we want to go. And so have a bit of history on this. In 2019, we were kind of again struggling with should we do some small maintenance things to kind of keep it going, or really go into a full capital campaign for this project. And so we wanted to get a sense of the town at that time, so we had a non-binding warrant article just to get a flavor of the town. We want to see, should rec investigate this, cost it out, do potential designs, but it was non-binding. It was supported by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 for that, just to explore it. But it did fail in town on a vote of 639 to 773. So we kind of took that as the notice that there really was not an appetite in town to explore that further at that time. So that kind of put us back on the path of we'll do small maintenance as needed, but our kind of annual operating budget doesn't have much of a maintenance line. So we kind of patch things that need to be dealt with for safety and access, but we're not really making any progress with Talent as far as improving it for other options. And so our goal with looking at Talent right now is, again, do we stay on the path of just kind of limping by, which we can do, but recognizing there definitely may be a large expense that takes Talent offline. And that's kind of our big fear of having to shut it down because of a major HVAC water structural problem and not being able to address it. So that would impact folks significantly, particularly the rec leagues that use that to practice during the off season. And that's the struggle. So you see our first two items here kind of reflect that point, that it's certainly worth considering if a more comprehensive recreation community center is something that town wants to explore. We certainly believe that would provide more equitable recreation activities. Most of our budget is dedicated to the rec leagues in town that are primarily for youth in town. But something like a community center could provide, certainly different exercise options and indoor walking space, which would be beneficial for falls and things during the winter. Additional community space that could be non-rec for sure. Certainly, folks are familiar with what that looks like in other towns. We certainly think it's worth considering, but of course that would be a major investment. So absolutely recognize that's in balance with other priorities in the town, and the most recent vote would reflect that taxpayers did not have much interest in pursuing it in the last couple of years. That said, we certainly would welcome the opportunity to look at just the design to build it out. So one of the unfortunate things that happened, missed opportunity during COVID, was there was a lot of money that came into municipalities, and because we didn't have a design kind of shovel ready to say this is what we have available, we weren't able to pursue some of those grants that came along. So even if we didn't go all the way down the path of saying yes, we're doing this, even the design would be helpful for us to have there to explore grants or other funding opportunities that are opportunistic for us to consider. So that's kind of the first item, and that's a big thing to consider. I recognize, but that would be a recommendation to look down that path, really get a sense of what that could be for the town, or at least take some initial steps so we could be in a position to move if something came forward. Alternatively, there are other capital improvements to Talent that would provide some better assurance to keep it open and functional, if not improving it or expanding the opportunities from Talent. The floor is the biggest piece right now. That floor has been polished, sanded, buffed, a number of times, such that the last time we went to sand it, they told us that was really the last time you could do that. And so we can clean it now, but not much else. And the next step would be really to replace the floor at this point, which would buy us many more years, certainly. But again, then you're investing in talent for, that's over a decade investment, right, in floors, for sure. So you're kind of committed to that path, or that would be the most economical thing to do, right? If you're investing in those things, it's for the longer term. Other things with talent are certainly in the horizon as far as HVAC. We kind of upgraded but not fully replaced. Last couple of years, there's only some plumbing issues that we look into, but the floors are the biggest piece because that's where the action happens, and they get beat up, and that's what we want. We want it to get used, but those would be a significant piece to replace. So that's the biggest, fork in the road for us as a rec commission as far as the capital investments in town. Other things, though, that we'd love to consider, playgrounds. Sawmill certainly is on the list of having a playground. At some point, that was, I know, part of the plan when it was first built out, that would be a great place for a playground. It's walkable to a lot of homes in that area, so that's certainly an incentive. We'd love for there to be a playground at the fields so that when you have families with younger kids, there's a space for part of the family to, as the parents manage them, there's places for them to go. So that would be something, but it would be a brand new structure down there at Sawmill. Tennis courts certainly need to be resurfaced. Again, we're kind of looking through. We're going to do some hot patches this fall before the winter. It's got a lot of cracks. It's got things growing in the cracks, and they're only going to get worse. So it's certainly still playable, but not ideal right now. It's going to continue to deteriorate over the next couple of years, and will eventually become, just not playable. And so that would be something that we would want to address sooner than later. The playground at Dara is certainly is getting near the end of its kind of predicted life. We've certainly had a number of problems with it that we've had to take certain units offline, and again, we just kind of patch them best we can to keep them safe. But certainly we've seen photos on what's up and everything about the slide's broken, the thing's tilting. So again, that's volunteers kind of going down and fixing them as best they can. So I'll give a thank you to Kevin as well, because he helps out with a lot of the things that come up in town that take things offline at rec. So thank you for that as well, to keep things safe. But really, redoing that playground would be something that we think would provide a lot of value, and again address kind of what we know are going to be kind of ongoing safety issues that'll crop up with the existing units there. And then this is one that's really in conjunction with the Conservation Commission is around Dara Pond itself. It's kind of been in decline with growing milfoil issues. It's got a big goose population that you'll see as migration goes through, which creates water quality issues. And we've heard from folks that what is the plan with Dara Pond? Because at one time it was a swimmable body. It certainly could be again if it was treated and maintained. But that would be a significant investment, not just to bring it up to the appropriate water quality, but then you got to kind of keep it there going forward. Certainly we know that swimmable water is not easily accessible in Litchfield, right? It's pretty much a drive if you want to go to a place that you can get to. We would love for there to be an option in town as summers get warmer, this summer notwithstanding. It would be great for a place to feel comfortable going in. So getting water quality up, getting fresh sand down there, and maintaining it. But again, that's kind of which path we want to go. It's a lot of use as a frog and fish pond right now. People can kayak on it, but we would love for it to be a swimmable body again at some point.
So I remember this one being discussed at length in past years, and one of the big concerns were the fact that you'd have to really have buy-in from the neighbors who abut that land, as to whether they can fertilize, as to how they take care of their lawns and whatnot. Since treating that pond is also impacted by the behavior of the neighbors, how effective would this treatment be was one concern at the point in time. So there's just that. I remember that's one of the reasons why it didn't go any further.
Yeah.
So
there was an environmental study done a number of years ago around that question, and you're absolutely right. There'd have to be, you want to get buy-in with all the abutters and do it in partnership with them.
yeah, because we could treat our section.
Yeah.
But though it's all one body of water.
Absolutely. And I think that would be appropriate to do that analysis again. before anything happened, to just figure out what would it take, what kind of
Right.
expectation should we ask of the abutters, because again, it's their.
Because that just takes one person bringing a rowboat in from a contaminated source, and all of a sudden you have
A lot of
a
invasive
bloom.
species that can
Yep.
get in, yes, for sure.
So, yeah. So I'm saying, the idea sounds great. I just think there's a lot of logistics
I seem
associated
to
with
recall in
it.
the budget committee that it was brought to the budget committee years ago, and it was
Mhm.
approved by the voters to have treatment done, milfoil treatment done
I-
at Dara. That failed?
It failed because it was an ongoing massive expense, and we couldn't control what went into the water outside of our little beach.
They had a milfoil one that failed
Yeah,
3 years ago.
Something like that.
No, this was longer than that.
I'm just saying, so I'm just saying, it's been,
You must have access to the history, right?
I think the
Warrants,
study
like,
was
years-
done.
Within the past, 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
In any event, right, I mean, to your point, it was never done, right, but I seem to recall the town being behind that at one point.
I think it was like a one and done, and then people realized, oh crap, this is an
It's
ongoing
continuous.
$50,000
Yeah.
or $35,000,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can't control everybody around it. So it's like, there were other places to spend that money, which I totally get. I mean, it's one of those, it's really awesome, and if we could guarantee that, you can't tell people they can't use the land that they purchased because it abuts land, water.
Right, except that it is shoreline, it is subject to the Shoreline Protection Act.
Sure.
No, I would say, you need education, et cetera, but,
Yeah.
I mean, there are actual regulations.
I don't know that I would ask any of our local people to enforce that on some of our neighbors, though. That's where the small town comes in, right? Like, how much can you really control somebody's behavior?
You'd have to
So,
center yard witness them and
Yeah.
turn them in.
yeah.
But there's also just a matter of education, everybody doesn't understand,
Right.
and so sometimes it's just letting people know what the best management practices are, which are available on the DES website
And
to
then
talk
cross
about
your fingers and hope
fertilizing.
they follow them.
And I know that the Conservation Commission, this has become an ongoing issue, because from what I understand, the milfoil, it's a natural type of milfoil, or some sort of
Oh,
natural
try some like duck
process.
that drops it.
It's
as it
natural,
goes.
but it's invasive.
Invasive, right.
Right.
But I think the Conservation Commission was trying to get someone to get certified by the state to do some sort of cleanup of the milfoil. But it was some sort of new process that I think it would be costly, but it's been very effective in treating that issue.
And I think some people have gone in there and tried to rake some of that stuff out.
They have, yes, I've heard that, yeah.
I mean, it's almost futile, right, because they can't do enough of it.
And I know that this, when
Then
the,
they were
I think the
fertilized,
was it the planning board that we did that survey?
Or the water level drops.
When we
the
started,
temperature goes up.
just around the time the CIP started.
Right.
One of the things that was on that survey was Darrell Pond, if I recall, and I think a lot of people were very interested in seeing Darrell Pond sort of coming back.
We got a lot of comments
Comments
on
on
that, too.
that,
A lot of people
yeah.
saying they, want to see it come back, or what happened to it. or-
Right.
There might be a picture in the master plan on that.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
I mean, how would stormwater management fit into that?
Yeah, I
That's in
wrote
the
down
MS4 area.
MS4.
It
I mean,
does.
would there be any,
Yeah,
Yes,
you know what I mean?
absolutely it does.
Kind of money to be,
Well, I was thinking of that too. I mean, there are some grant sources out there,
Yeah.
both for studying, the immediate watershed around the pond and looking at what the sources are, because milfoil is one issue, but it's totally separate from phosphorus, which is probably the other major issue, I'm guessing.
I think it did fall in the phosphorus. Kim, did it fall the higher phosphorus?
I did.
Yeah, I'm
It
sure it
did.
did, and that does absolutely relate to MS4.
Yeah.
So there are some tie-ins there, yeah.
So we're meeting with DES in January to evaluate some other issues that we have that they are willing to consider us for grants for. We could certainly add that as one, but
Because especially since Darrell Pond is also over a high-yield aquifer, which is just worth mentioning. That could be a water supply link, which is a link to the 604B grants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't-
Get there,
Hey.
You just have to like change the wording a little bit, thread the
You
needle.
hitch onto whatever wagon you can, right?
Yeah, don't see anything in the warrant article.
There was something.
There was a discussion at one point.
There was a discussion in the minutes of December of 2019.
Yeah.
About
I'm
that.
impressed you pulled them up that quick.
Article 8 will raise $35,000 for the 3-year treatment of Dare Pond. The major work would occur during the first year, the second and third years would be maintenance. But that was in December of 2019.
Did it
And I
not
don't
make
see
it?
I don't see it in March of 20 articles.
No.
I don't know what.
I think it got
happened.
pulled.
It must have.
Yeah.
Pulled it, I get voted.
I think, I
know
think
it
the
got
discussion at during budget committee was of all the things that were up,
I
with
don't
that,
see it on the articles.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones, yeah.
the ongoing maintenance just made it not cost effective to pursue when there were other things on
And I
the.
think it got voted down because there were a lot of things we said, I can't believe this passed, but that did. Yeah, because that happens all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But we did discuss it again in CIP when people were talking
I
about
seem
it.
to remember way before.
Because I know, but there was a bunch of people that had given feedback about the beach area and the playground and
I think we need to worry about
The
fishing
walking
boats
path.
and like other stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it went on and on.
Right.
There's nice little drop canisters you can get, put everything in.
Just last thing I'd like to comment on are just the items that were in there in the plan previously, just so you know where those things stand. First was around irrigation at Milton Park. Our landscape company, Natticook, has been very good in working with us. They put that well in as part of the contract. They built that into it. They expanded the head, so we feel that that is in a good place right now and would not need to be a priority. Sawmill, really about the playground at this point. We've had the great expansion with the pickleball, so that it's in a good spot. It would really be the playground there. Talent certainly spoke to what those issues are. Always been paved, so that one's off the list, and the tennis courts is the same issue of resurfacing. So that's where things stand. But I'm happy to take any other questions.
Have we looked at grants for new playgrounds or those kind of things?
We haven't got too far down the road, but that is certainly like a fundable thing for grants, right? Maybe not in whole, but certainly could be. And you don't necessarily need to do the whole playground at once for Roy, right? Like that one, it could be replacing one at a time. But for Sawmill, it'd probably be a bigger ticket item to put it all in.
So when you're looking at Talent Hall, like say maybe a replacement, a new community center, are you looking at just replacing in kind, or are you looking to accommodate increased capacity?
We want to increase capacity for a number of reasons. First of all, it would provide more equitable recreation opportunities for folks. Like I said, right now it's really heavy to youth rec leagues because it's just a big space, right? If you expanded the size and scope of it, it would really diversify the opportunities for folks in town, which we think would be important for sure. Certainly it matters to a degree once you get into planning about what you want to do there, but I think the functional design would be the biggest change. It wouldn't just be new, it would offer new things within there that I think would be attractive to more folks in town.
Right.
And one thing I would ask too is, with all the new developments coming online, do we have a forecast as to what kind of impact fees we may have accessible in the next couple of years? I mean, it's like, I know we spent it down on pickleball.
We don't now, but we certainly could do that.
Because, I know we spent it down for pickleball, but we have developments coming in, so revenue's going to come in. So it's not like we have to go straight 100% tax. There should be funding available, perhaps through impact fees, to explore expanding Dara Pond, the community center, because that's just, if we're looking at expanding it, that should fall under the usage of impact fees.
That's exactly why I asked that question.
Right, so,
The new playground at Sawmill also.
right, that could be, replacing it there, no, but unless we put in, although would, like ADA or like accessible equipment be something that could be used for impact fees?
I was wondering that same thing, whether there's gonna be
Because that's
universally
expanding a
accessible.
service, they're not currently accessible over there, and those things are not cheap.
A universally accessible playground is not cheap.
Yeah, so,
It would have to be tied to new growth in town.
It would.
Yes.
You'd want to expand the capacity, but also there's more grant opportunities most likely around universal
inclusive,
accessibility. There's even groups like Rotary's out there, and there's a lot of groups who like to do playgrounds,
right.
which is great.
And then the only other question I would have is it I mean, I think you have one playground and then the next year the next playground. Is that a realistic spacing of timing, or do we truly anticipate 1, 2?
Well, this is their priority, remember, we gotta do our own.
Okay, alright, yep, no, that's good. So that would be my next question, is like,
That's just to give us an idea of what the
Okay.
submitters are thinking.
not that I'm trying to say one's more important than the other,
Because
but
we
at
won't
the
see
same
it all
time.
until everything's back on the sheet
Sure.
again.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, it's
Thank you.
lovely to see rec here.
Thank you very much. All right. Next item.
Thanks again, then.
Bye-bye.
Thank
a great
you.
night.
Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Is the school, Mr. Totten?
A good print one if you want it.
Oh, that's a big
Big and pretty.
Yeah, very nice.
Wow.
Do you want a big pretty one?
Yeah, because it didn't look that big here.
Is this the one updated as of today? Yes.
Do you want
Yeah,
one?
it's just, it's
Oh,
kind of hard
I
to
have-
look
Do
at.
you have
so-
enough?
Yeah.
You need one?
No, I have one.
You guys want a big pretty one?
Fancy,
Give
thank
an
you.
extra one.
Yeah.
Extra one.
You want me to give one to the board?
Might be easier for you
Sure.
too.
Yeah, that's
For the board of selectmen to look at.
Double-sided.
There's
Oh, I
a
have
20-page
this, I
long
can-
column
Yeah,
that
right
did
on
not
it.
print.
Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
at least I don't have to speak.
All right, well, thank you for printing this out. It was definitely helpful to see it a little bit bigger as well. So the number one priority for the school continues to be the elementary school. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. You know, that's where we're focusing our time, that's where we're focusing our effort, and that's really where we want to continue to focus our time and effort is a new school. Now, like any construction project, that continues to go up in cost. You know, no longer is the rise in cost what it used to be 2 or 3 years ago, but it still is going up in cost. So, you know, those numbers continually adjust to that. The most recent number we got was around 500 per square foot. That's an all in, that's building, that's architecture, that's landscaping. It's an all in type of dollar per square foot. So that brings us to around that 39 or 40 million dollar mark. Obviously, our goal would be to get an appropriate school with, you know, the lower price we can get it, the best. But again, it's when you're creating a school, when you're building a school, you also want it to have long-lasting value for the students who are in it now, but also the community, because Litchfield is a community that, you know, the 3 schools are main spots of Litchfield. So having another community center, being a school is, you know, is not only just beneficial for the kids, but for the community. So you can see that that ranks right from the top of us. If, you know, a new school didn't go through, well, you know, we have to solve the problems that are at Griffin. It takes a walk around Griffin to kind of see that some repairs definitely need to happen, and some repairs, it's only a matter of years before they would need to happen. So at some point, it would make sense to, if a new school isn't built, to put a chunk of money into Griffin, so we can modernize Griffin, make it, you know, more user-friendly for the students, more accessible for the students, but then also more accommodating for heating bills and things like that, more predictable. So I know those are the 2 main ones, so I don't know if we want to kind of break now for any questions before we kind of go to anything else, or if you want to just kind of keep on going. A lot of it isn't new. A lot of it's been on the plan for the last several years as well. But I know, you know, the school is a key thing to the town and a key thing to us. So I don't know if we want to break now for questions, or if Mr. Carter wants to add anything else onto that.
No, look, I mean, you covered it perfectly, right? So land, school, top 2 priorities. You have 3 listed as urgent because if there's no school, then we have to invest in the school that we have, so. I
was just curious, I mean, in terms of if for say the the new school didn't pass, and you had to do renovations on GMS. How much are we talking about in terms of
It's line
doing?
three.
What's
It's
that?
line 3.
Yeah, it's 28 million.
Oh,
Canvas
okay,
renovations.
yeah, all right, 20, okay, 26, 28 million.
Yeah, so part of that is, we have multiple portables, getting that to be part of the building. Part of it is that, a section of GMS, the same block that's inside is your same block outside. So that's not really conducive to heating or cooling. And a lot of it's just updating the HVAC system that's in there right now, which is.
That's the bulk of that 28 million, is the
And it
HVAC?
says something about demolition.
Or am I?
No, so again,
confused?
it's adding classrooms, so that the modulars that are inside, getting away from
Oh, gotcha,
modular
okay, yeah, yeah.
classrooms. So it's addition, it's
Okay,
reworking the space that's
so
there.
it's renovation of the existing structure plus an expansion for the
Exactly.
portables, okay, and
Yep.
HVAC.
And HVAC,
And HVAC.
and I believe it includes fire suppression and
Yep.
all of the now code requirements that building is not compliant with.
And it would be reworking the parking in some way, because right now the parking goes out onto
Mhm.
3A in an unsafe way. So how can we rework that? So that's a chunk of that as well. So it's trying to take care of the problems that are there currently, and the problems that will come within years of a building that age, and just trying to take that chunk all together.
Are there still water problems?
Are there water problems?
Yeah, still?
Yes, it's very much so.
So would that be a part of the 28 million?
That is a tougher part of the 28 million. That was one of the reasons for a new building on a new site, is that, we can't jack up the building to put some type of water membrane down before it. It is what it is, and the water level there is gonna continue to be what it is. Today, what we could do is, a new HVAC wouldn't have the rooms. We walked around today, some of the rooms, the highest room was at about 82% humidity, which is very high. But there was, many of the rooms were in the 70 percentile for humidity. And, I think a lot of times at home, we might set our dehumidifier to 55, 50 type of thing. So those numbers are creeping up quite a bit. So that, along with the moisture that's there, does create slippery surface. There are industrial strength fans that go in the beginning of the fall, end of summer, as well in the spring, to circulate the air to make the hallways, the classrooms less of a fall risk, but with that comes noise.
On a warm day, right, if we had a warm day in the early spring, I'll call it, right, and we happened to have the sweetheart dance, or the father-daughter dance, right, and it was a very hot day, especially with the 200 or so bodies, right, or more in that gym, right, and because of the heat that day, the principal at the school said, Mr. Hefner, put your hand on the floor. Just feel the floor, right? And it's soaking wet. The floor is wet because of all the moisture that's penetrating the surface and coming up into that building, especially on really hot days.
Like today?
Crazy.
Like today.
Like crazy.
Yep.
Yep. And then you think about the things that are underneath the floor that we don't know. Mold.
That's my next thought.
You know what I mean? You
Absolutely.
think about all those other
Absolutely.
things that you as a homeowner would think, well, it's the same thing in the school. So,
Now, part of that school, the original, I think it's the original structure, is the
1930s
the 1930
building.
building.
Yes.
Does that get used? Is
Yeah.
that part of the school, or is that just
well, it's part of the school.
well, I mean, is it just a
physically
facade
attached
that?
to the school.
Yeah, but nobody, there's no access to that?
There is.
There is
Or
no
is it-
student
Do they
access.
use that? I guess that's my
So
question.
it's used for storage,
Yeah.
because it
Okay.
actually does have a lower humidity in that area. But it's only used for storage, it's not used for student access.
Okay.
And it's very difficult to get in and out of because there's a ramp literally
Mhm.
like this,
Okay.
right? And it's not accessible to many.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. All right. So, anybody, any other questions? I guess we'll move on.
I guess the only other question I would have is that, has anybody checked the interest rates on these bonds?
Yeah,
Because
so.
that's like through the roof now.
I mean, luckily, we would get to go through New Hampshire Bond Bank, and
Are they more
when they
insulated?
had their most recent sale of bonds, which was July 12th of 2023, a 29-year bond was 4.09. And I think 6 months before that
That's
was like,
better than what I hear lately
yeah.
everywhere else.
So 6 months before that, it was like 3.8, I think. So,
Okay,
you know,
so
4.09 is
it's
definitely
got
better
some-
than we're all hearing. I mean, partly it's because you have
It's got better
lot of-
insulation than everything else.
a lot of towns going in, so it's a jumbo type of loan with towns that are gonna pay back the loan, so
Yep.
it's,
Gotcha, okay.
yeah. All right.
Very good.
So the one that got added last night by the school board and then showed up on your papers today when I emailed them out is the purchase of the solar array and the solar storage. So we are, you know, once the work is done, we'll be entering into a power purchase agreement where we pay $97,000 roughly per year for it. And then, you know, you've heard the number 95,000, that's because they pay us 25,000 for the use of our roof. So the difference is that 95 that we've used before. So after the completion of the 6th year, we will have the option to purchase it. And as of right now, the price that they're associating with that is about $550,000. So if we don't purchase it, instead of paying that $95,000 a year, it starts to go up to like 105, 115 the next year. It just increases. So obviously, again, when we get closer to that, we would have to analyze, does it make more sense to purchase it or not purchase it? But right now, we're thinking it would make more sense to purchase it. So if we're looking at 550,000, 600,000, you know, that would be something that we'd rather chunk out in years to kind of add up to that amount. So that's where you see the 120,000 per year, which we would ask through a warrant article for that. So that is newer to this, but that's again planning for the future on something which we expect to want to purchase.
Why does it show up in 2025 when we know it's an expense now? Why aren't we starting it in 2024?
Not due until 2029.
Yeah, but that just means that the annual expense would be that much less if we split it out over a lot more years. So we know now.
It was more of the board's action last night to add this was more in the spirit of we want to be able, we want to be responsible. We want to be able to track it as a known cost, right? And we decided to level fund it over a 5-year period in alignment to when that payment is due.
All right, well, this is not the place to have that discussion, but it will come up later as to, we know the expense now, why are we waiting? So just be prepared at the
Because
other
we're planning
venue.
for a new school and we don't want to overtax the taxpayers.
Yes, well, you know my opinion on that one too. So, again, not the place for that discussion.
So I don't know how much you want me to go into some of the other ones, just because they've been,
I think the other ones were all previously on here, right?
Yeah, they're already.
they've all been on.
I think that the one change from past years to this current year is notably the LMS fields. That did move up in prioritization from past years.
No, yeah.
And the reason for that, when we think about the middle school and all of the investment that's now nearly complete at the middle school, you'll also see that there's LMS pavement, parking, and access roads, right? And other things in the middle school also are in very bad shape, right? What we don't want to do is then have a warrant article that fixes or remediates the pavement and then have to run heavy equipment over it to replace fields that are located on the LMS, technically on the LMS property, but the LMS fields are next to GMS. So the way the LMS land is situated is it goes all the way down into a parcel 2-3A. And so the softball field and the baseball field are actually LMS property, but next to GMS.
Down through, I haven't walked it myself, but my understanding is down kind of a path through the woods.
There's a path
with
through the
no
woods
visible
and all
sight
that
line
jazz.
between the middle school
That's
and
correct.
Rosehill.
And so the idea here is, should we move into a new middle school, or a new elementary school, excuse me, we would want to relocate those fields to be closer in proximity to the middle school itself. And there was land in front of the building to do that.
So that's, this LMS Fields line item
Correct.
is tied to new school, otherwise.
They've been talking about that field for over a decade.
I know, but I'm
It's,
just trying to make sure.
It's a
that
good idea
that's tied.
regardless of the new school. What we're saying is we want to do the fields prior to us doing the pavement.
No, I get that
Yeah.
part. I totally get that.
Oh,
So when you were
Mary?
talking about
Yes.
the school, I'm like, okay,
Is
well, are
that
they
Mary?
resituating that property and that's what
Yes.
this is?
Oh.
Cause I know there's that other one that's
She
kind of
said something.
in the woods on one of the sides, I can't recall which side it is.
Marion, are you on the call? Hi, Marion. Is anybody with you this evening? Are you alone, or?
Yes, my friend Eric is here.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, good evening. I didn't even realize that you were on. I apologize.
I've been here about 20 minutes.
Okay, all right. Do you have any questions or anything? Did you want to comment on anything that's been discussed? That,
Oh, I did have a question about if the school was not voted in and they have to fix the GMS. Last year when Dr. Jetty showed us the spreadsheet about how we got on a list of being very necessary to have a new school, there were some things about safety other on the list that we were ranked very high in, but he could never pinpoint exactly what that was. So how would we know that that 28 million is going to rectify whatever safety other was, since he never knew what it was? And I'd still like to know what that was, because that is the factor that put us so high on that list statewide. And I never got an answer.
Before that's addressed, I'd like to make a motion to allow Ms. Colby to participate remotely.
very well. I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second
I have a second by Mr. Stone. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All right.
Paul?
Do we need to do a roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we're gonna do a roll call vote. Ms. Queenan,
Yes.
I'm a yes,
I am a yes.
Yes.
and Carrie's no voting. So the motion passes 4-0-0.
So in regard to your question, Ms. Colby, and specifically the other, I do recall that coming up. I do recall that being part of the fire suppression systems and a number of other factors that were rolled into the general category of other. But we can definitely get you the specifics in time for our next meeting.
And the other question, they say that it may result in some of the demolition of some of the older parts of the school. What parts are you referring to?
So, we, as we look at the school, we look at the 1930s building first. So that's important to the town. So we want to hear feedback from the town, if we were to renovate, what that would look like. And then as you move past the 1930s, there's part of the building that was maybe 1950s, I'm thinking. That's the part that the same block is both interior and exterior. So there's no insulation at all. So that would be the part that would make the most sense to kind of start from scratch with. So we can insulate it the right way, so.
Is that the part where there's water on the floors when it's humid?
Partly.
And partly and actually all of the gymnasium.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the 1930s building, just visually in your mind, the wing to the right and the wing back of
Yeah.
that is really the main.
I went to school
Yeah,
there,
okay.
yes, I understand.
Yeah, but I do thank you for bringing up building aid, because I forgot to mention that as far as funding for the school. So we ranked 5th last time in that. So schools need to, pass their bond in order to get it. So the thinking now is that there could be around $10 million. Now, who's in front of us is Concord. It starts off as more than 10 million, but we believe Rochester's gonna pass, and there's another school that will pass as well. Now Concord, the number that we might have seen in the paper was way higher than the state will approve them for. But Concord is still, their middle school is gonna be large, and they're gonna qualify, they have more free and reduced students, therefore they qualify for a larger percent. They're gonna qualify for more than 10 million. So if they take the 10 million, they can't take any more. So the going thinking is that Concord's going to wait and pass on the 10 million. go to the next cycle, and as right now Concord doesn't have land either, go to the next cycle and then move up to most likely number 1 on the list. So if, if it's passed for like 60 million in building aid and Concord qualifies for 40 or 50 million of it, they would get that whole amount. So if you're gonna qualify for 40, 50 million, you're probably not gonna take that 10 million. So if they pass on the 10 million, we are next up. What we would qualify for is roughly around 7 million. So that would, be, that 7 million would start, with a successful bond vote. I believe it's 80% that comes like in July of 2024, and then another 20% that comes more towards the completion of the project. So we can't guarantee that, but the way that the state is talking, that's the direction that we might find ourselves in.
Okay, that's it. Thank you for that information.
Okay. Anything else?
Just looking at the list, the others are all previous items that were on the plan, so.
And on the back, I see all the ones that were completed.
Yeah, which is, it's nice to be kind of towards the end of the construction process at the middle school. When we walked through the middle school today, again, the middle school is air conditioned in the office areas, and it's conditioned air in the rest of the building. So that takes the humidity away. So on a hot day, it felt comfortable in the middle school today. I'm not gonna say it was like air conditioning like this room, because it's not meant to do that. Because again, if you're conditioning the air to this extent, then it's cost more. But for a New England school in the heat that has been the last several days, it did feel comfortable in the building today, which is great.
So the solar array, so it's an option to purchase it. So once you made the payments, does that mean that you take, like, is the school gonna take ownership of it? How does that work?
Yeah, so for the first 6 years, we don't have an option to purchase it at all. So we pay $97,619 per year, and that gives us the electricity that we need as well. They pay us back $2,500 for the use of our roof. After that, they could continue to own it, and then like our next payment, I believe, goes up to like it's $97,000, $114,000, then $117,000 the next year, $121,000, so it kind of goes up by $3,000 each year. So if we did purchase it after 6 years, then we would own it outright.
And get the benefit.
And get the benefit. Yep.
Okay.
So, wait, so to clarify though, if we don't buy it, the only difference is that the cost goes up $3,000 a year?
No, it goes up significantly in subsequent years.
Because otherwise it would take 200 years to bring it
No, it
itself.
goes up significantly. in subsequent years.
So by year 13, we're paying $136,000 for it, so it goes up.
That's year 20.
Year 20 is $167,000 for it, so.
Well, that's a sweet deal for them.
The whole thing
You get dying equipment after 20 years that you're paying a fortune for.
Yeah.
That's right, it's structured that way.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Totten, for that report, appreciate it. I lost my agenda. Covered under all the other papers that I have in my desk. Okay. Next item on the agenda is another public input session. I don't see any other members of the public here. So at this time, I will close public input. Is there any other business this evening?
Just to get a refresh on upcoming meeting dates.
Yeah.
It looks like we have a meeting on the calendars here for next Wednesday, 13th. and the intention of that meeting is to go through the prioritization as a committee?
Right,
Okay.
that's correct.
Yeah, so I'll strive to get an updated spreadsheet for everybody.
Okay.
We've got enough input at this point to do that.
Yeah, okay.
And then we're looking for like final decisions on October 2nd.
Second. Okay, and I guess we can start putting together, you know, sort of the plan itself, and, sort of fashion.
Should be a robust discussion.
It will be, as always. As always, okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Since there is nothing else this evening, I think we've heard from everybody this evening, I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, we'll go do a roll call vote because Marion's on. Kim?
Oh, we're voting to adjourn? Yes.
Michael,
Sorry.
yes.
I made the motion, I just wanna make sure I had the wording
Yes
right.
as well?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a vote. I
Oh,
was-
you're gonna let me know.
Marion? Did you, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you for joining us this evening, and we will see you on the 13th of September. Have a good night.